the Emergency Preparedness and Response Training. As you go through this training, you will notice a green icon along with the word Resources in the upper right portion of your screen. Clicking the icon will open a window with information on the images used in this presentation. Clicking the Resources will allow you to learn more about the information used to create this training. In addition, some slides contain images, videos, or links that make this presentation more interactive. Clicking on these links will open information in new areas and will not impact the presentation view. This presentation also gives you the option to view subtitles, pause the slide, or replay the slide from the beginning. You may navigate to all the slides within the presentation using the sidebar on the left, but all slides within this presentation must be viewed in order for you to continue. This training provides trainees with information on emergency preparedness and response, planning for emergencies resulting from a natural disaster or human-caused event. In partnership with the North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services, this training is being offered by the NC Child Care Health and Safety Resource Center, a program of the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, and is intended to meet applicable NC child care rules set forth under 10A NCAC 09.1102 Centers and .1703 FCCH. Those who satisfactorily complete the training will receive a certificate of completion for 1 contact hour. The university does not require this training. Completing this training does not qualify participants as certified medical or healthcare professionals, nor does it replace the need to consult a healthcare professional for guidance. Nothing in this training, including any and all contents, materials, or information provided as part of this training, is or should be considered or used as a substitute for medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Never disregard or avoid professional medical advice or delay in seeking it because of something you have read, heard, or seen as part of this training. Contact a child care health consultant for implementation guidance. This training is not the multiple-hour emergency preparedness and response in child care training that is required for at least 1 staff member per facility. Emergencies can impact both people and property. Being well prepared for an emergency can reduce fear, anxiety, and losses that accompany disasters. The purpose of emergency preparedness and response is to reduce injury risk, prepare staff to provide a quick and safe response to an emergency, and to support successful recovery after emergencies. In this training, you will learn about emergency preparedness and response, the stages of EPR, and types of possible emergencies, along with the unique needs of each potential situation. Note, while you go through this course, you may see or hear the abbreviation EPR. This is simply a shortened version of the term Emergency Preparedness and Response. The Building and Physical Premises Safety Training briefly discussed risks and hazards as they pertain to children and their decision-making. In this training, you will go into more depth on hazards in a broader sense and look at how hazards can lead to emergencies and disasters. A hazard by itself is an event that may affect humans, but it is just the event. A hazard becomes an emergency when the event actually impacts people and property. Think about a hurricane. The hurricane itself is a hazard, even if it never impacts any people, but it becomes an emergency or a disaster when it goes over an area where people live. Being well prepared for an emergency can reduce fear, anxiety, and can limit losses that accompany emergencies and disasters. The purpose of this emergency preparedness and response training is to reduce the risk of injury and trauma for children and adults, prepare staff to provide safe and efficient responses to emergencies, and to support successful recovery after emergencies. All licensed child care facilities are required to have an EPR plan. This plan must be reviewed annually and changes made when necessary. Here are a few questions to get you thinking about emergency response in your child care facility. Where is the EPR plan for your facility stored? When was the last time you reviewed the plan? When was it last updated? Hopefully you know the answers to these questions, but if not, you should make efforts to find out. Consider how your answers are different from others based on the facility where you work, the location of the facility, and the needs of children you care for. There are 5 stages of emergency preparedness and response. In each subsequent section of this training, you will learn about each stage in more detail. These include planning, identifying what is needed to successfully combat a hazard. Preparing, putting what is needed into place. Practicing, conducting practice drills. Responding, going to the safest place with necessary supplies. And recovering, the reunification of families and caring for physical as well as emotional injuries. The EPR plan addresses how a child care facility will respond to disasters and ensure the safety and protection of the children and staff. This rule applies to both child care centers and family child care homes. This section includes a general overview of information found in the EPR plan. Staff are required by North Carolina child care rules to be oriented to their facility's full EPR plan. As previously mentioned, every child care facility in North Carolina is required to have an EPR plan. This emergency plan outlines the steps to 1. Identify the appropriate response to an emergency. 2. Notify families when something happens. And 3. Care for children until families can get to them. Facility EPR plans must include the location of all attendance lists, those responsible for the lists, and how the lists are used to account for children. Instructions for staff and the process for transportation, equipment needed to transport non-mobile children, and when you will walk or use a vehicle to transport children. Types of communication used to notify families, including voicemail, email, website, social media, and local emergency numbers. List and location of emergency supplies, lists of medication, and equipment or assistive devices needed. And directions and address of at least 2 off-site evacuation locations. Later in this presentation, you will receive additional information on emergency preparedness and response rules. These items are required to be included in all facility plans. Lists of phone numbers, including 911, the poison control, and any local numbers to reach first responders. List of primary and secondary exits, evacuation routes, accessible exits, and safe outdoor meeting places. The location of all children or staff who are non-mobile. Instructions for how to meet the needs of children with disabilities or special health care needs, including nutritional, transportation, or equipment needs. The location of the ready-to-go files, and the date the plan was reviewed or updated. Every facility must have a ready-to-go file. It is recommended that you review the contents of this file for the children in your care. This folder should include medication forms, medical action plans, lists of known food allergies of children and staff contact information, incident report forms, an area map, emergency telephone numbers, contact information for those authorized to pick up children, and completed applications, although family childcare homes may use the Health and Emergency Information Form in lieu of these applications. If any of the children you care for have physical or medical needs, make sure to review their action plans found in this file and know what medications they may need. Also, make sure your own information is current in the file. Now let's discuss the preparing stage of emergency planning and preparedness. Both planning and preparing take place before an emergency or disaster. Being ready is important. You never know when an event could happen, and how well your facility plans and prepares could make all the difference in the world. Preparing includes learning the facility's plans and your role, collecting supplies, and teaching children about emergencies and response. As mentioned, both planning and preparing take place before an emergency or disaster. This doesn't just apply to the preparation at the facility. Preparing also includes learning the facility's plans and your role, collecting supplies, and teaching children about emergencies and response. In fact, children can be a mechanism for change. Information older children learn at the facility can be passed along to help the family if an emergency or disaster were to occur outside of the facility. All this discussion about preparation leads to a natural question. What exactly is my role in an emergency? Think for a moment on what roles you may have to fill. The answer is that you, as an early educator, will likely have several roles to fill. Your first and most important role is caring for the children in your facility. Make sure they are safe and looked after. You might also be called upon to administer first aid or provide documentation of the events, the facility's response, and the status of staff and students. Before an emergency occurs, you need to know what your role will be in the event of an emergency or disaster. The staff at your child care facility should write down, discuss, and practice the positions that each person will take in an emergency. As previously mentioned, your role in emergency preparedness goes beyond what you do to keep children safe. It extends to how you can teach or prepare them to respond to an emergency. You may be surprised by the concerns children have about emergencies. Past traumatic events and how they are prepared for future emergencies go a long way in determining how they react should an event occur. Reviewing information and using classroom activities can help them be better informed. Even younger children have the ability to learn how to respond in certain situations. Beyond anything you can do to prepare them for an emergency is something that can be even more helpful. Simply offering reassurance that the adults in their lives will do everything possible to keep them safe in an emergency can make a world of difference. An idea to teach and reassure children is to invite emergency responders to your facility, show pictures of their uniforms, or plan a field trip to a fire or police station so that children become familiar with their uniforms, to see who they should look out for, or who they should try to find in an emergency. Let's now discuss how to put our preparation into practice for emergency events. Practicing emergency drills are an important and required step in emergency preparedness and response. Drills are an effective way to learn how to act in an emergency and to practice your emergency plans. They can build staff skills and confidence for responding in a real emergency. Drills can also make children feel confident that they know what to do to stay safe. Every month, facilities must conduct fire drills. Every 3 months, lockdown or shelter-in-place drills must be conducted. This will help ensure a lot of practice and will keep the information on what to do current in staff and children's minds. Drills should be conducted at different times of the day and during varying weather conditions. This section will cover how you should respond in the event of an emergency. The purpose of all the planning, preparing, and practicing is so that everyone is ready and knows how to respond when there is a real emergency. Knowing how to respond and responding correctly helps decrease the time it takes to take action and helps to decrease the impact on people and property during an emergency. There are 4 steps to responding in a real emergency. The type of emergency will determine the type of response. The first step is to determine what kind of emergency it is. Once that's determined, staff and children should move to a safe meeting space. This safe meeting space may be within the building, outside the building, or far away, again, depending on the emergency. Once gathering at the meeting space, all staff, children, and visitors should be accounted for. Finally, leave only once the emergency responders tell you it is safe to do so. Depending on the situation, this may include returning to classrooms or leaving in another way. Next, you will learn about different types of hazards that can lead to emergencies or disasters. Think back to some events that you have experienced, whether inside or outside of the child care facility. What were these events? If they occurred while in the center, how did they impact your ability to care for children? How did the children respond to you and to the situation? If you have never experienced an event in the child care facility, how do you think you should respond? Can you bring in any experiences from outside the center that may help you to relate to and care for the children? There are many types of hazards that can lead to emergencies and disasters. Unfortunately, many of these hazards can impact North Carolina. Luckily, most of these events are relatively rare, and some will likely only affect one part of our state. Before discussing the types of hazards, it's important to mention the difference in storm watches and warnings, since this may impact your response. If your area is under a weather watch, it means conditions are favorable that the event may occur. A warning, on the other hand, is a more immediate threat. It indicates that an event is currently occurring or is imminent. In the case of a watch, you should remain vigilant. However, if a warning is issued, you should take action and follow your facility's emergency plan. As mentioned, North Carolina has a variety of natural hazards. These include severe storms, tornadoes, hurricanes, flooding, landslides and mudslides, temperature extremes, winter weather, and wildfires. Other events, such as earthquakes, can occur in our state but are much less frequent. All of these events can be severe and threaten people and property. Hazards that your facility may face are not limited to natural events. Man-made hazards are also possible. As with natural hazards, some events are more likely than others. These hazards include technological breakdowns, accidents, terrorism, threats, explosions, fire and smoke, hazardous materials spill or gas leaks, hostage situation, intruder or violent person, missing child, nuclear disaster, and power outages. As you can see from this list, human-generated events can either be intentional or unintentional. Biological emergencies include contagious illnesses which can turn into outbreaks, epidemics, or pandemics. These emergencies are often caused by viruses, bacteria, or other toxins. As previously mentioned, different events require different types of emergency responses. The facility EPR plan will have designated safe locations. You should know where each of these places are, how to get to each location, and what the plan is to transport children to these locations. There are 3 types of emergency responses: shelter in place, lockdown, and evacuation. Officials or first responders may provide guidance for where and how to evacuate. In the next part of this presentation, you will learn what to do for each type of response. Shelter in place, as its name suggests, is a situation where you should stay inside the building. In certain events, such as during a tornado or in an event that may result in contamination, staff, children, and visitors should move quickly and quietly to a safe room. This should be an interior space away from doors and windows. These places offer the greatest protection. A lockdown is used when there is a person on the premises or nearby that may pose a threat to children, staff, or visitors. It may also be the appropriate response when a dangerous animal is in the vicinity. Individuals should move to a place in the classroom or home that cannot be seen from outside the room. The doors and windows should be locked and blinds closed. Electronic devices should be silenced. Children and adults should remain as quiet as possible. No one is allowed to enter the facility in this situation, including parents or guardians. Families should be made aware of this so they do not try to enter the facility when in lockdown. A true lockdown emergency should not be lifted until local authorities have given clearance. If it is unsafe to be at the facility, evacuation must take place quickly, calmly, and safely. Events such as fires, gas leaks, or emergencies at nuclear power plants are examples of when it might be necessary to evacuate the building. The facility should have a transportation plan that they will follow to move children to the evacuation location. If evacuation from your facility is necessary, there will be designated safe meeting locations, depending on the type of emergency. You should know where each of these places are, how to get to each location, and the plan for transporting children to these locations. Officials or first responders may provide guidance for where and how to evacuate. Again, depending on the type of emergency, you might meet outdoors on the property or at a neighborhood site, at a location outside of the immediate neighborhood, or even at a site outside of your town. In this section, you will learn important information about recovery after emergency events. A crucial first step in recovery is the reunification of children with their family. The person in your facility who is responsible for communicating with families after the emergency will inform the families about the location of the evacuation site. Families must sign their child out when leaving. Make sure to have a clear process so all children are accounted for at all times. Staff and other volunteers must also sign out before leaving. This helps to ensure that everyone's whereabouts are known through the event, in case emergency responders need to search for missing staff, volunteers, or children. The hours, days, weeks, months, and even years following an emergency or disaster are physically and mentally trying times for everyone. After the emergency is over, it is important that everyone receives any needed support. Everyone, child or adult, reacts differently to trauma. Some people may act out, some may become withdrawn, and some people may not show any outward signs of worry for weeks or months after the event. Your facility will have a list of resources available to support children, adults, staff, and family members affected by the emergency. You should review these resources so you are prepared in case of a real emergency. Also, Be aware that the process of recovery takes time. Practicing drills after an emergency may trigger reactions in children. Be prepared to talk about the need to keep practicing and work to calm their fears. As mentioned, children may show signs of emotional distress. They may revert to thumb-sucking or wetting the bed, fear strangers, darkness, or monsters, become clingy with a parent, caregiver, or teacher, want to stay in a place they feel safe, have changes in eating and sleeping habits, have behavior changes, or have speech difficulties. All of these reactions, and many others, are normal when children and youth are handling the stress immediately after an event. If any of these behaviors last for more than a few weeks, or if they suddenly appear later on, these children may need more help coping. Later in this presentation, you will be given a guide that identifies resources that may help these children. Please review the guide and keep it handy in case of a real emergency. At least one person from each facility must take the longer in-person emergency preparedness and response training. This person is also responsible for developing the emergency preparedness and response plan for the facility and orienting the staff to it. Staff must be trained on this plan during orientation and must review it annually. Substitutes or volunteers counted in ratio should also be informed of the plan. Early educators should know who this person is in the facility so they can answer any questions that staff, parents, or visitors may have. When an emergency occurs, people will sometimes go into shock and panic. Knowing what to do before a disaster or emergency can help prevent panicking and poor decision-making. As an early educator in this situation, you must stay calm, follow your facility's written plan, fulfill your assigned role, and listen to the person in charge. Doing these things can help to lead an orderly, swift, and safe response to an emergency. Thank you for your time and attention in this training. Continue on to complete the training and earn your
Evacuating children always takes planning and coordination. This is perhaps doubly true when those children are infants and toddlers. Watch how this team works together to evacuate a mixed age group with infants and toddlers. Notice how they stay calm and make sure that their emergency alerts are taken. They also identify which teachers will be responsible for which children as they are collecting them for evacuation.
Count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yep.
The group moves to the shelter or evacuation area after counting and making sure that all children are accounted for. Infants are often placed in an evacuation crib to carefully move multiple infants at once. With toddlers, you can practice a hand-holding strategy so that the group stays together and a caregiver is near with direct contact. When they reach the shelter area, the staff members count again by matching name to face.
If you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 babies, 6 infants.
Once everyone is accounted for, watch how this team keeps children engaged, comfortable, safe, and happy. There are universal strategies for responding to emergencies, regardless of the type of situation that arises or where the center is located. These strategies include being prepared, following your written plans, and ensuring that everyone is safe. Emergencies can arise at any time. Responding quickly and appropriately reduces the risk of harm for everyone.